Hi, welcome to another episode of Accelerated Velocity. Peter, how's it going?
It's going all right, Grace. How are you?
You know, I'm good. There's a lot going on, but I'm good.
Yes, there is lots going on. That's kind of I guess, the tagline of our society right now is there's lots going on.
Absolutely. And I guess let's just jump into it because, kind of on that topic, we're going to look at a shift in SaaS right now that's going on. And there's a lot going on with that too. So, Peter, I know we were going to talk about Micro-SaaS specifically today. Could you introduce this, why we're interested in it, and tell everybody what a Micro-SaaS product really is?
Absolutely, and I will sort of weasel out on the why we're interested in it. We're interested in it because we're building micro SaaS, but there really is more than that. It's a trend, and it's really a shift in how companies start, how small companies start. While this is not purely focused on AI, this is happening because of AI capabilities. It would not happen without AI. So, I think that's why it's relevant to this podcast and the AI discussion in general. So micro SaaS is a product that does one specific thing. Let's say, pick an example that might really not be worth it while to anybody, but let's say, all right, I upload all my credit card bills and it's put into a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet and it's done for you. That would be an example of micro SaaS. Another example of micro SaaS is a product that's an add-on to a very popular SaaS product, like, for instance, Shopify. There are this huge user base of Shopify users, and a micro SaaS product might address a particular thing that Shopify doesn't offer out of the box, but would be a valuable add-on to a number of Shopify stores. So that's the definition. Also further, it's also often a solopreneur, and that solopreneur, if they have the tools, it's a business that can be spun up literally in days. I mean, we're not even talking a week. It's possible to spin this up in days, and it's also possible to start getting some revenue from it pretty much immediately. I mean, it's such a shift. I'm really curious also how that's going to affect the startup ecosystem in general.
Yeah, I think something I'm really fascinated in that you already kind of touched on, but the fact that there are more and more micro SaaS products that are also micro teams. It's not a very big team or maybe even one person. So where we have seen, big platforms like Shopify or HubSpot creating tons of different add-ons that you can dive into. I think that this realm of small teams creating bite-sized solutions for specific problems is something to pay attention to, both as a consumer and also as an agency if you're doing any sort of development work. So a couple other key distinguishing factors worth thinking about is the market size, the niche, and the growth potential of a micro SaaS product. Micro SaaS could have huge growth potential in terms of scaling out, but typically it does respond to a fairly small niche and often to a fairly small industry niche or demographic. And that's a way in for a lot of these small teams to quickly hit the ground running and get people subscribed to their product right away.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I will say that, just like any other software product, if people fall in love with your product, they're going to be asking for features. And so in that case, a micro SaaS could turn into a full-blown SaaS product, continually raising their prices because of the feature set that they're adding, and also continuing to grow their user base. I think there's a lot of upside potential with most of them. And, even if it starts out with a tiny little sliver, a small niche, that, again, where does it go to from there? What features are users going to be asking for? And really, I mean, that's in some ways a dream way to launch a product, is like, I'm going to give you a really stripped down MVP, and you're going to tell me what you need in addition on that software product.
So you mentioned one example. I just wanted to hit on a few micro SaaS companies that have picked up a lot of speed and gotten a lot of funding very quickly, just to visualize how niche they can really be. Solo is one that basically very narrow software that helps people respond to debt lawsuits through automated messaging. It also gives people attorney recommendations and lists of ratings and stuff. So you can kind of see the idea of how specific and limited the implementation might be.
It's a wild example.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is a good example of if you are an agency that is working in product development to some extent, thinking about the different niches that your skill set could apply to. I'm sure that the same automated software is being used for a number of vastly different types of industries and tools, probably with fairly similar functionality. And then it's just a matter of, scaling it towards a specific.
Yeah. And if you want to get a feel for other ideas, you just type in Micro-SaaS product ideas 2025, and then after October 1st, you're going to have to type in Micro-SaaS product ideas 2026. But nevertheless, you'll get a lot of stuff to sort through.
Absolutely. And I'll mention just one more that I really like because I think it's interesting. Carrd with 2 R's is one that has been getting a lot of recognition as a well-funded, fast-growing micro-SaaS product. And what it is a no-code solution for single-page websites. So all it does is make single-page websites, and you can do it very quickly with that tool. But, a lot of people have probably had a need for that at some point, but you're not going to necessarily need to create a single-page website all the time. So it's kind of an interesting use case of like how you can cater to a very specific need, but potentially also reach a wider audience as well, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think, part of the formula that I've been reading about is that you need to design a website. So at this point, you need to have somebody help you with the design of what can be a one-page website. It's not a huge lift, but then you can use a platform like Claude Code to build a website. And does it look like the most amazing website in the world? No, it works. And, there are people generating $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month within a couple months, 3 months. That's, that it built a website that way, have invested basically nothing in it except for some sweat equity. Or equity is not a good word here, but sweat.
Yeah, absolutely. So that also leads me to just to hit on in terms of micro-SaaS models and how a lot of developers and product designers are taking the approach to these micro-SaaS solutions. It's always going to start with a problem or a pain point. Again, thinking about those niches, industry specifics, specific challenges for platforms. But like you said, Peter, I think that the most important thing is to build quickly. And with that, to your point, your interface really does not need to look flashy in order to succeed when you're launching an MVP.
Yeah, and that's kind of anathema to our, interface to its user experience design and so forth. We work with a lot of companies that they need, it's an established company, and they need it to look like the Ferrari of whatever business model you can plug in there, a website. So it's really a very 180-degree opposite to a lot of the stuff that we do. But I think it's worthwhile for everybody to look at it and consider it.
Absolutely. And I'll say that if you're on the consumer side, you're not necessarily working for an agency that is developing software. Something to consider is the power of voicing issues with various SaaS products that you're using on whatever forum you have access to for that product. I think this has always been the case that some very, very talented, very smart people will pick up on like a gripe that somebody has with the Chrome browser, for instance, and develop an extension that solves that gripe. But I think that's more and more the case today with this trend. So if you're having a pain point with Shopify, with your project management platform, with your CRM, I think it's more important than ever to not underestimate the power of publicizing those issues, chances are other people are having those problems as well. And it could even result in a very simple and straightforward tool being designed in your favor.
And undoubtedly will be designed in your favor.
And odds are designed before you've even, put the idea down on paper. But yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just an extension of this wild world we live in right now. But, I was thinking also about where does that take us? In other words, if Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were in their garage and could have put together some piece of software that's making them $30,000 a month within a few months, might that have shifted their trajectory? I mean, with Steve Jobs, I don't think so. Maybe that's a bad example, but I'm sure it applies to some startups and startup teams.
So I know that this was really quick. We kind of sped through this, but we really just wanted to hit on how this trend might be affecting businesses as well as consumers. And I think we'll leave it at that, but we'll keep checking in when there are interesting products that arise utilizing AI or other software.
And I'd love to hear from anybody who is actually building or has built a micro-SaaS and share your experience. We would likely love to have you as a guest on the show to talk about this more. The invitation is out there.
For sure. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Peter. I'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.